That's what's gonna make it nice and flaky. We want that. We want that. Okay, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nadia, and this week we're making baklava cheesecake. I think we all know what cheesecake is, but baklava is a filo pastry dessert that has pistachios, walnuts, and lots of honey in it, and it's the perfect sweet treat in my opinion. So I thought, why not combine cheesecake and baklava and see how they go together? Honestly, my mouth is watering just thinking about this dessert, so on that note, let's get cooking. We're going to start with preparing the crust for a baklava cheesecake, and for this crust we're actually going to be using lots and lots of layers of filo pastry. You can make your own filo pastry. I've never done that, so I just bought this pre-ready frozen one that has been thawed. I'm using a 9-inch springform pan that I'm going to line with some parchment paper and then lather in a bunch of melted butter. Then I'm going to layer the phyllo dough, making sure to brush some butter in between each layer, and I'm going to try alternating how I layer them. So if one goes this way, the other one's going to go this way, and so on and so forth. I don't know how else to explain that, but you'll see. The phyllo dough crust is done, so I'm actually going to pop this in the fridge and we can work on our walnut pistachio crust that's going to go on the bottom. For the pistachio layer, all you have to do is combine the pistachios, walnuts, cinnamon, salt, and honey in a food processor. I have a mini food processor, so I'm going to do mine in smaller batches and keep pulsing until everything has a coarser texture. This might actually be a little too coarse, but I'm going to go with it. I do want it to be a little bit stickier in texture, so I'm going to add a little bit more honey, and once it can all easily stick together, we're going to add it to the pan and press it so it's nice and even. Moving on to the cheesecake portion of the baklava cheesecake. In a stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment, beat the cream cheese and then add the Greek yogurt, followed by the sugar, honey, flour, eggs, always add the eggs one at a time, and vanilla. We're going to mix this on a pretty low speed because if you overmix your cheesecake, you get all those cracks through it when it bakes, and we don't want that to happen. There are also a few clumps in this mixture, and I think that happened because I didn't beat the cream cheese as much as I should have, but again, I've committed, we're going to go with it. Hopefully it doesn't ruin my cheesecake. Or I guess we're covering it with the phyllo, so it doesn't really matter. But if we weren't covering it with the phyllo, then listen to what I just said. I'm going to pour this cheesecake mixture into the pan and make sure it's nice and level, and then I'm actually going to fold over the phyllo dough layer by layer, and of course, once again, we're buttering in between each layer. We kind of did the exact same thing with the burek last week actually, when we put butter in between each layer of dough. That just prevents it from sticking, and then when it bakes, it's going to kind of fluff up and separate from each other, and that's going to give us that really, really flaky texture that we look for in a baklava. I'm excited. Once it's all folded over, bake the cheesecake on 325 degrees Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes. My one suggestion when baking the cheesecake is to put a sheet pan filled with water on the rack below the cheesecake. Springform pans are great, but they also tend to leak sometimes, and especially because we have so much butter in this cheesecake, the pan is going to collect all the butter and the water is going to prevent it from burning. So when you open the oven, it might be a little smoky and you might have to refill the water because obviously it's in an oven, but trust me, it's going to save you from having to clean your oven when it all burns and melts and is just a disaster. So do this. This is the one thing I recommend. While that bakes and cools, we're going to work on the honey drizzle that's going to go on top of the baklava cheesecake when we go to serve it. In a saucepan, I'm going to combine the honey and water and cook over medium heat. When it comes to a boil, I'm going to reduce it to a simmer and let the mixture thicken, and then add some coarsely chopped pistachios and walnuts. Honestly, things were going pretty okay up until this point. The cheesecake baked, it cooled, I was ready to cut into it, it made that really nice crunch sound that I was looking forward to. And then I actually saw the inside of the cheesecake. Oh, is it cooked? It didn't cook. Usually you know cheesecake is done when the edges are nice and firm and the middle still has this nice kind of jiggle to it. Although we did layer phyllo dough on top, which basically took away that whole marker, and I wasn't able to gauge when it was done, so I kind of just went with the 40 minutes that I thought would be enough. Clearly it was not enough, and after consolidating my mother, we decided to put it back into the oven to bake for another 40 minutes. It seems like a lot of time to bake a cheesecake, and I was really scared that it was gonna burn, but it didn't, and it actually tasted pretty good. Once the baklava cheesecake was fully cooked, I cut it and topped it off with the honey drizzle, which I personally really enjoyed, but nobody in my family was a super big fan of. Was the cheesecake yummy? Yes. Would I make it again? Also, yes, but I would definitely make some modifications to make my life a little bit easier. For starters, the next time I make the baklava cheesecake, I'm definitely not going to be layering the phyllo dough on top. I do think that's why the cheesecake took so long to cook, because there were just so many layers to get through. It was yummy and it did look nice, but it's not a crucial aspect to this cheesecake, so I think I could live without it the next time. Speaking of things that we could live without, I don't think anybody in my family really liked the honey drizzle. They all said it was way too sweet because the cheesecake itself is obviously on the sweeter side. So when you add all that honey on top, I mean, you really get a sweet tooth with that. It was a little too sweet for me, I'm not gonna lie, and I have a sweet tooth, but it wasn't like bad. I would have it again. Plus it looks pretty, it like kind of cascades down. It's nice, it's a nice touch. Other than that, the baklava cheesecake was super yummy and it wasn't too complicated to make, and I'm actually now thinking that maybe the next time I make it, I'll try making the phyllo dough from scratch, which I'm realizing is probably just gonna make things more complicated, even though I said I would try and make things less complicated for myself in the future, but you get it. Until then, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next Friday. It looks like it's literally about to pour outside, so it's so dark. It's kind of scary. Hopefully the power doesn't go out. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it looks like it's like 10 p.m. Like it's really, really dark outside. Then I'm gonna layer the phyllo. Is that a butterfly? Yes, this dress has pockets in case anybody was wondering. It's very convenient. I figured everybody should know. There's like a fruit fly on the light. Oh, it's really annoying. How is it alive? Okay, we're done.